The Walking Dead Rick Andrew Lincoln prepares to, something Gene PageAMC Cogent decision-making under pressure used to be one of The Walking Dead's strengths. However, as the most recent episode, and the 8th season thus far, shows, that rationale has become what Gregory in a chuckle-inducing if overlong speech would call a big scary U for the show's writers an unknown. And the show demonstrates few signs of understanding how to reacquaint itself with it. There's a rule that applies to both planning a military engagement and writing a conflict: have a goal, and take logical steps to achieve it. Having forgotten this torchlight, The Walking Dead has been stumbling around in the darkness, having characters shouting assurances ad nauseum, without giving viewers much reason to have faith. Case in point, Daryl and Rick's lovers quarrel in the Big Scary U on 2 occasions. Rick tells Daryl some variation of "there's a plan. We stick to it." But is there really? This season opened with Rick declaring that only one person has to die. Great mission established: kill Negan. But how is the show part of show don't tell going? Rick rolled up to Negan's door with dozens of soldiers. From around 25 yards away, his submachine gun somehow missed Negan. Maybe it malfunctioned. Luckily, he had an army with assault rifles. At least one guy's rifle is even scoped. In most military basic training, trainees have to hit 300-meter targets with old as-dear M16s with iron sights to qualify. It isn't hard. With 3 to 4 magazines of ammo, a semi-competent shooter could teach a novice to be reasonably accurate at the distance. Yet Negan escaped unplugged. But hey, that was plot armor, not logical inconsistency. Gabriel's encounter with Negan, on the other hand. Negan has a goal: self-preservation. He also carries an overly large knife. Yet, instead of subduing and disarming Gabriel with that knife to the priest's throat, he swaggers out with a crappy one-liner. Gabriel never attempts to shoot him. But hey, maybe Gabriel was too scared, and Negan was banking on that. Well, what about Rick trying, again, to recruit the scavengers? Enlarging your fighting force makes sense on paper, but you don't go threatening an army alone, when yours doesn't know where you are. But hey, the kingdom just got wasted. Maybe Rick didn't have time to rally his troops. Plus, it's not like we've seen the garbage people working closely with Negan. Maybe Rick thought they split was amicable, and he could put the moves on them. Generally speaking, when you're expecting all-out war, you flesh out power policies in advance. Yet, no one in Rick's coalition had any idea what to do with prisoners. Granted, we're trying to manufacture tension here, but Morgan wanting to kill the runaways and monsters still would they accomplish that? Moreover, the show is unnecessarily redrawing moral lines here. When Jesus, Tara, Morgan and Maggie hem and haw over their prisoners' fate, they invoke right and wrong instead of means and ends. Who cares? What matters is that when people are inducted into despotruled society, many don't want to be there. Killer crack the facade of their government's omnipotence, and they'll rise against it. See the deaths of Benito Mussolini, Muammar Gaddafi, Nicolae Ceausescu, etc. Kill every surrendered savior, and word will reach the rest. They'll fight desperately to death like kamikaze pilots. However, if Rick's coalition inducts the most compliant prisoners, disperses them as workers among their 3 groups, and jails or executes Negan's most loyal lieutenants, they'd incentivize more saviors to surrender, swelling their ranks at Negan's expense. Rick approaches this kind of pragmatism when he argues that Daryl's plan to bomb the sanctuary could prompt savior workers to take up arms against Rick's army instead. Although, if Rick really wanted to contemplate hearts and minds, perhaps he should have established power guidelines before this all-out spectacle. Gregory, meanwhile, also pragmatically evaluates killing captives, but in the believable, self-preservative light of dwindling resources and the danger prisoners pose. Negan isn't The Walking Dead's biggest problem. It's that when he swaggered on stage, rationale slunk away. It started with worsening dialogue and characters making increasingly bad or uncharacteristic decisions last season. Now, with its scope expanded, the lack in logic has bled into every aspect of the show's production, compromising 3 tenets central to enjoyable action: clarity, realism, and resourcefulness. The result: all-out war has just become tedious noise. Not every action scene has been bad. Ezekiel, Carol, and Jerry's fight in Some Guy was well done at the hands of first-time guest director Dan Liu. Morgan and Co.'s assault on the satellite station was also compelling. However, take Aaron's assault on, and Rick and Daryl's infiltration into, the outpost in the Damned and Monsters. There's no clear signal they're all at the same place. Aaron Co.'s infinite ammo stormtrooper shooting just makes you wonder why no one brought grenades. Rick shooting a fire extinguisher to provide him and Daryl cover comes off less like resourcefulness, and more like Deus Ex fire extinguisher. There's little clarity, an unrealistic shootout, and unbelievable resourcefulness. So let's rewrite that scene. This go round, we see Rick and Daryl kitting up with Molotov cocktails and a smoke grenade. Daryl mentions that he hates the garlic smell of phosphorus grenades. Rick retorts that if Aaron keeps them covered, they shouldn't need it, establishing clearly that they're all at the same place. Aaron's assault this time features less auto. Instead, suppressive fire covers grenadiers lobbing grenades, pipe bombs, or Molotov cocktails at the saviors. Now, when the saviors retreat into the building, it's because they're in a convincing kill box, with their cover getting burnt out. Rick and Daryl hear saviors coming, but not before Rick snatches a fire extinguisher. They're burning this place down. They don't want the saviors to put out the fire. As saviors approach from both sides, Rick, thinking on his feet, shoots the extinguisher, putting the saviors at risk of friendly fire, and forcing them to regroup on one side of the hall. As the saviors press onwards, Rick pops the smoke, and Daryl tosses Molotovs. The hallway becomes a confusing miasma of fire and smoke, making the saviors back off. However, they keep firing. Rick and Daryl are pinned. Rick has an extension cord in his room. He could try to climb out the window, but Daryl would have to cross a hallway choked with fire and lead. There's no way out for them both, until Aaron Al saved the day. Clarity check. Believable resourcefulness check. Realism check. The old Walking Dead would have given us a similar scene structured along these lines. Instead, the show has dismissed logic in filming the show's action sequences, leaving too many moments where at least one of these things is always forgotten. Rick confronts Negan, and the latter doesn't come out the door without some cover or workers for human shields. Daryl and Rick take on a truck with a 50 cal, and Rick's windshield casually tank bullets that chew up engine blocks, so Daryl can make a 3,040-yard pistol shot on a speeding motorcycle. The old Walking Dead would they made Rick duck as the bullets came, and his car stall as they tore through the engine. But hey, Daryl would they had a submachine gun, or if he really wanted to be badass, a sawed-off grenade launcher, yes, that's a thing, to make that shot. Instead, the show keeps abandoning logic and, unlike Daryl, missing easy shots.